All right, guys, let me get into this. I had to kind of oversee the production. We had a little herky-jerky problem last time. But first, the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com and go check out a complete list of all the sponsors there. We appreciate them. Without them, the show wouldn't be possible. So thank you. I'm going to rattle a few of them off now. Gallo Technologies, the walls behind us. Rhino Metals for all the tables. Blackwater Ammunition, Enforced Weapon Lights. Full Quartz and Firearms. CAA Gear Up USA. Appreciate them. Right On Optics, Kenzie's Optics, and Pulsar. Thermal imaging technologies coming down in price. Go check out Pulsar. We appreciate them. We appreciate everything that they do. I'm excited about this. I'm going to try to get to a lot of the stuff I want to cover with this guy. I haven't been this excited about a guest in a minute. So, we're going to dive right in. We got Ryan Kinel from RK Outpost. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? I am so excited to be here as well. When you reached out to me, I looked at your former guests. I'm like, Dana White, Donald Trump Jr., Ryan Kinel from RK Outpost. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But no, dude, I'm really excited here. We got worlds colliding. I think so. This is the start of something really beautiful.
I think this is the start of something bigger than people think, and I think I use the term uniting the clans a little bit. Maybe that's not apropos or that's not appropriate, right?
I did that when I shot out the stream as well, and I got a little pushback. Like, really, Ryan? Uniting the clans with that haircut?
Yeah.
Really?
How dare you?
Where's your tiki torch?
Yeah. But I want to prop you up a little bit because maybe there's a little bit of glad handing or jerking each other off. But you guys do a great job with your channel, first of all, and then with all the channels you're affiliated with and the work that you guys do of getting some unbiased opinions out there and some unbiased, approach to media. And I really like that. I think that's awesome. And I want to flatter you for a second. I think what you do is really great. And I think that, the work to be done is thankless, is the way to put it. And I don't think you realize that or have realized that just yet, but I think you're starting to, because there needs to be a light shown on some of these topics and some of the things that you're talking about.
It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're talking about news, if you're talking about politics, you're talking about entertainment, you're talking about sports. People are really tired of the same old voices, the mainstream, because everyone clearly sees their agenda. And, when we have success on YouTube, that's what it is when we're just being ourselves and being real and speaking the way that most people speak. The ideas that a lot of people in this country and the world have, but are somehow, you're supposed to be fed this line that you're not supposed to think like that. That's not okay. That's not the right narrative. That's not the right opinion. And all we're doing is getting our voices out there. And it's awesome that so many people are digging that. And that's why we're successful.
I think so too. I think that offering an opinion is something today that, and it's important we touch on this before we dive into deeper stuff. Offering an opinion today is almost taboo. You're almost not allowed to have it. And this can lead us down 7 other wormholes, right? So when did that start? What was the genesis of us being, and I don't mean to say us, but the individual being able to say, I think this, and it becoming almost like a cancerous, cantankerous, not okay thing, right? When did that happen?
God, it has to be within the last, 5-6 years. Like 2014, 2015. Obviously, we know what happened in 2016. The presidential election of 2016, I think, really just exacerbated all these problems that we had because the mainstream media found out that their narratives weren't working, that they were losing. And that's when you started seeing this true cancel culture come about, where it's like, what this person is saying, they don't try to silence you if no one's listening. If no one cared about what you had to say, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
But when your message is reaching a lot of people and a lot of people are receptive and it's counter to, I talk about Star Wars a lot. So if it's counter to what Lucasfilm is putting out, then they want you silenced. And it's the same way with all of these corporations right now. They're forgetting about who gives them money, who supports them, and instead they're going with whether it's a virtue signal, whether it's this narrative that they're trying to perpetuate. And they're failing, and they're so upset about it. That's part of it.
And, we're getting a flood of questions in. I think that the real problem isn't necessarily with folks having an opinion. It's just it's not the the opinion that people would like, which is, I think, is the greater thing. But it's important before we get into the discussion to set the tone with that, because I think people need to understand somewhere along the way in all this, Ryan, it's gotten jaded to be able to say, hey, you know what? I don't like that kind of ice cream. Not a fan.
Are you really? You don't like that kind of ice cream? Well, you must be a racist, bigot, transphobe. That's the only explanation. And that's, I've said it's almost like every year we have a different word that becomes meaningless. Over the past few years, racist, that means nothing anymore. Bigot, that means nothing anymore. Transphobe. 2020 was the year of the transphobe, where that meant nothing because, now all of a sudden, if you don't want to put your preferred pronouns in your social media bio, then you get called a transphobe. And it's these people that are trying to change language. They're trying to do all these things in order to put anyone they disagree with in a box because they can't have the discussion because they know, John, they know that if they sit down with you and have a discussion about the facts, about reality, in all likelihood, they're going to lose.
Right.
So what do? They try to say, well, I'm having an argument, but this person, they're a racist. You wouldn't want to agree with them, would you? And that's where it happened. I don't know, but I know that 2021, where we're at now, it's people want to say cancel culture isn't real. That's absolute bullshit.
Horseshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad we set the tone with that because people have to understand. But I think I think that the reality is we're entering a very desperate time for mainstream media. I think mainstream media is very desperate to grab headlines. I think they're very desperate to get attention. I think they're very desperate to grab headlines. So whether it's using the coronavirus death toll, right, which is the most ridiculous thing ever and the most ridiculous narrative ever to create this panic, right? I don't call it a pandemic, I call it a panic, and I call it no crisis wasted, right? So let's have this crisis, right, that we can push out there. And CNN's admitted it. It's owned because they know they're on their last gasp. It's like the magazine's dying, right? It's the last gasp of hope. Get it out there. If it bleeds, it leads. Just push it out there. You don't have to be right. Just be first, right? Just be out there. So what's happening now is anyone who calls them out on this, because they still have the money, they still have the ability to push, and they have the ability to push pages like yours, pages like Geeks and Gamers, Jeremy over there, pages like, whether it's the Quartering or any of these guys, they have the ability to push them around because they'll say, we'll throw 20 million at YouTube, or we'll throw 10 million at YouTube, we'll buy ad runs, we'll do this, and we'll try to squash anyone that attempts to step up. And that's exactly what happened with Gina. Now, the problem is the silent majority is not so silent anymore, right? So you have a lot of people pushing into that space, but that's how I see it playing out, and it's not playing out well for the other side. So they're kind of like, oh shit, we need to find a greater way to quiet everybody on that side of the street. Am I wrong in saying that?
I don't think you are. I think you're 100% right. And when you look at COVID and the ridiculousness that has happened, listen, anyone that's been affected by it, anyone that's lost someone to it, I feel for you. That's terrible. At the end of the day, what we're doing is insane. What we're doing is literally insane right now for the vast majority of the population. That we don't want to get too into it because they call it medical misinformation if you tell people facts at this point, But if you look at the numbers, if you look at who's affected by this, listen, the fact that you and I are forced to go out with masks somewhere if we want to go see a sports game or whatever outside is literal insanity, and it's all being used.
The forced usage of whether it's pronouns or masks or anything by people that we may consider ideologues or people we don't respect, and there isn't really a lot of science behind it. There isn't a lot. There's fleeting science, right? There's fleeting, but a mask will... Listen, was a mask important in the beginning during the 2-week bend the curve? Possibly, right? Was social distancing important during the flatten the curve phase? Possibly. Now it's becoming fleeting, right? You have X percentage of people vaccinated. You have states starting to open up. It's just but the problem is if that story dies, they lose their flagship story. But what do you transition to? We need something else, right? So you see the slow transition, and somebody just commented and brought this up, to racism, to mass shootings, to all these different things that they can grab onto and use as headline grabbers. And and I do want to get to the Gina Carano Star Wars thing because I think that plays into it, but you see this grab. Where do you think the next big thing? Is it going to be racism? What's the next big narrative that you think they're going to pound home on us?
Well, I think we're already seeing the beginning of it. It's gun control, 100%. We've seen it over the past 2 weeks. It is 100% gun control. And anyone, listen, I don't know if you see the account, Biden voters posting their L's. It's one of my favorite follows, by the way. But like that account is hilarious because it's all these people who, you know, a lot of us tried to say this is what's going to happen if the election turns out this way, and they're like, I can't. It's happening. It's one of those things, the guns, and obviously we got. If you guys are watching on the video instead of audio only, this is an absolutely ridiculous studio. I feel like
they can see you.
I gained testosterone just by walking in here. There's no doubt, but the push for gun control is real, and we start seeing these headlines. It's like, oh, there's a mass shooting here, there's a mass shooting there. That only seems to start getting reported in a certain way when this push is on for gun control. It happens every time. You never hear a push for gun control when there's 5 people on a sidewalk in Chicago that get shot by a drive-by with an illegal weapon because it doesn't fit the narrative. But we've seen over the past few weeks in headlines, the mainstream media is clearly trying to push to help the government take away people's guns. I think that's 100% where we're going next.
Yeah, I don't think that's a question. I think that the attempt to, what we would say is disarm the populace, right, is going to be a popular one, right? The attempt to take away and divide is going to be the narrative, is going to be the story of the day. And I think whether you're CNN, MSNBC, or any of these mainstream groups, there's going to be that push to try and quiet us, divide us, and separate us, right? And there's a difference between division and separation. Separation, you start to form like these other little, as we call them, like, I don't want to say it, but these other little subgroups, right? I don't want to use the clan word because they're going to think it's, but
spelled with a C.
Spelled with a C. Yeah. So they're going to try to create these little subgroups where we all worry about things that are fleeting, right? That are kind of like little sub things. And my goal of having even you on the show and opening up the dialogue is everybody needs to start to support each other, right? Everybody needs to start to support one another. We need to start to get behind the people that are, pro anti-cancel culture, pro conversation, pro common sense, pro open dialogue, right?
Yeah.
And we need to start to go into these spaces, and we need to start to have these conversations, because the anti-gun narrative is the next vestibule. That's the next Gina Carano. That's the next space. And they're prepared to live and die in that arena as the left, and it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous for us. How do you see it playing out? And is it going to be, everything now? We talked about this. I want to talk about this. Everything we talked about, someone just brought it up. Everything's a mass shooting, right? Everything's mass. Yeah. Everything is a mass thing. But the reality is these are occurring in places, as you said, that there's already the strictest gun laws in the country.
Yeah, it's crazy when people can't defend themselves. Crime happens. Who would have thought? Who could ever have predicted that? It's not like there's a bunch of statistics that tell us exactly that. Yet the solution is to let people not defend themselves. That's the solution to this wave, quote unquote, wave of violence. Yeah, I don't think so.
And shout out to the guys at D-Day Cobra, of course, Jeremy. Shout out to those guys. And listen. They're going to use this to divide us. They're going to use this to create a narrative, and they're going to use this to create a conversation. My goal with all you guys and some of your supporters and fans and people that come over and people that support all you guys is to say we have to join forces. We have to kind of start an open and honest conversation. Why is there such a desire to disarm us? Why is there such a desire to separate us? Why is there such a desire to make us a monolith, right? Why is there such a desire to paint us as racist or placist? Why is there such a desire to do those things and ask those questions? I have several friends that, have spoken up via this show and had conversations in front of this wall. They're not necessarily super pro-gun. They're pro-gun. They're pro-self-defense. They're pro-being capable of defending yourself. But there's an unending desire for them to come at us. But I think the reality is people have to realize humans have a desire to defend themselves. They have a desire to protect themselves, whether it's going to jiu-jitsu, whether it's going to MMA, whether it's training. People want to be healthy, capable people.
Yeah. It's
And is
shocking.
that such an irrational thing?
Well, and that's, again, you bring it back to the coronavirus conversation. That's part of the problem. You know, like the idea that you weren't allowed to go to a gym for a year. You know, I out in California, which is where I'm not from, but that's where I live, unfortunately, San Diego, California. They locked everything down.
Right.
They locked everything down. They locked gyms down. Luckily, I found a gym about 6 months in who said, fuck this. You know, who said, we're opening up. We don't care. We can't survive if we don't run, if we don't go. So, you know, no mask, no anything. Just go in there and get your pump on and work out. And that's a life. It's literally a lifesaver for people. The fact that people can't work out, that people can't do these things, that affects your immune system, that affects your mental health, that affects so many things. That's one of the reasons you're locked inside.
100%.
That's one of the reasons that you can go to McDonald's, but you can't go to a fucking gym. And that's why it's part of the programming, in my opinion, the part of the reason they're trying to control you. And when it comes to like the wall behind us here, it's not people with walls like this that are going out and committing acts of violence. It's people that are, for the vast majority of times, people that are getting the gun illegally. But we can never talk about that for some reason.
Right.
If we can never talk about that, it's just about the gun. It's about the tool that was used, not how insane this person was, not the red flags that were ignored, not the fact that they obtained a weapon illegally. It's, guns bad. Guns bad, ban them.
Is it funny how they make it about the gun when it could be about the hammer or the car or insert whatever else, right?
You know what's really interesting, if you want to get even more into that, depending on who the person is, sometimes they'll focus on the gun. If it's a white person, they'll focus on the race. You know what I mean? White male shooter, white males committing mass shootings. If it's not a white male, then it very much becomes about guns. Guns are bad. And to me, I'm looking at this, you and me, people like us, you mentioned some of the people in the chat, we look at these things and we're like, it's pretty obvious to see the narrative that's being painted.
Of course.
But evidently, it's not that obvious because there's still a lot of people hanging on to that. But like you said, mainstream is slipping, man.
They're dying.
They're dying.
They're dying.
ESPN, I talk about this all the time. Run a YouTube channel called Sports Wars with Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers.
Shout out to Sports Wars.
Shout out Sports Wars. And you know, we kind of tried emulating ESPN a little bit, just doing sports stories, you know, nice, not too controversial. And that's not what people want. What people want is reality. And the problem with ESPN and Fox Sports 1 and a lot of these other people, where they put people on there who push identity politics and social justice instead of sports. And we have seen through this pandemic, every single sport that decided to go woke, decided to talk about social justice as a platform before worrying about the sport, they're hurting for fans right now. NBA, lowest rated season in history. When everyone's sitting on their ass at home. You can't use COVID as an excuse. That's a reason you should be getting more. But everyone's home and not watching the mainstream. That's, like you said, that's why they're in a panic.
I think we're in, well, let me say this, because there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. Yeah. I think mainstream media is in a lot of trouble. I think it's in a lot of trouble. And I think they're gasping their last gasps. I think the way that the recent, CNN piece that came out, them blabbing about using the COVID deal and everything else to prop up ratings, that's a podcast in itself. That's a conversation in itself. And how people don't look at that and don't say, what the fuck am I doing watching that? I need to wake up. And how people that even watch CNN that saw that clip and don't understand that they're being manipulated. Go watch or go read Ready Player One. Go watch or go pay attention to They Live. I'm telling you, it's all right there. The template's right there. It's been laid out. You're being fed bullshit. And you're being fed a total narrative to chew on, digest, take home, talk about at the water cooler, and potentially lose your job over. And they don't care. They don't care. CNN does not care about you other than that you're a statistic and that you're a number and that they see you on the screen as a potential ad buy because they're at their last gasp. They don't want to lose their suits, their free lunches, their fucking burrito break, whatever it is. They want to keep all that stuff in. And the reality is guys like you, guys like Jeremy, guys, all you guys are threatening them, and they don't like it. And what Gina did, I want to stem into this because it plays into it. What Gina did was ultimately come along as a good person, as someone that was well-liked, that was well-respected on the set, that was handpicked by Favreau, that was brought in. She rattled the fabric. You know, she really rattled the fabric. And where my opinion, where Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm went wrong is they made a martyr out of her. And the minute you do that, you are fucked. You created Jesus Christ. And that's the truth. That's what they did with her. And they propped her up, and they really didn't handle it in any way, shape, or form the right way by making her this martyr. And it's going to come back, and it's going to bite them in the ass. And I think they've lost a ton of subscribers. I think they've lost a lot of respect. And I think CNN, Disney, they're all going to learn the hard way in the pocketbook, and they're going to run around and in their woke, meetings, gonna panic, and they're going to try to figure it out. And some of them are doubling down on this.
Yeah, and the thing is, Disney and Luke, they didn't need to do anything. Gina Carano didn't do anything wrong. Just because you have one person that doesn't think the same as the majority of your vocal employees out there, you don't need to do anything. We talked about sports. One sport that's thriving right now is UFC. And one thing that Dana does that a lot of people really expect is, you know what? Yeah, you might see some people talking about Black Lives Matter, promoting whatever they feel is important. You also see the other side. That's a very important thing. Now, there's some people out there that don't want any politics in sports, and I get that. I appreciate that. I hear that. But if you're going to allow one side to speak, you need to allow the other side. And the fact that Lucasfilm and Disney so clearly came out unmasked and said, if you think like half of the country effectively, we don't want you. You're not acceptable. That's abhorrent behavior. It's not just that they came out with a statement and said she's not employed, she's fired. It's that they went further and said what she said is abhorrent and unacceptable. That's an extra level. That is something that's trying to get someone canceled, that's trying to make sure they're not employable anymore.
I've said it a million times. If you're going to go and smear someone and you're going to go take that approach, you better kill them. You better have the goodies on them. They better have 8 14-year-olds in their trunk, because if they come back, they're going to fucking kill you. They're going to come back and they're going to haunt you, and she's going to haunt them. And I think whatever piece she does next, I know she's eyeing different things that she's going to do. I think she's going to continue to come back and haunt them. And I found it hilarious. And I think everybody should continue to do this, to downvote everything on Star Wars, to downvote everything on Lucasfilms, to downvote all those things. And I'm a diehard, I have 2 lightsabers in here. I'm a diehard Star Wars fan. I'm a fan. Okay, but I think that there's a time and a place, and they need a moment of pause, and they need to check themselves. I'm not like everybody else where I say they can never come back, it can never work. But when you have people like Mark Hamill saying they fucked up the whole thing and he's extremely left, you have fucking problems.
They've got a couple problems, because that, like you said, Mark Hamill, who has TDS as bad as any individual on the planet, his problems with the franchise have nothing to do with politics. So you've got a whole different aspect where they screwed up the entire franchise, plus they're pushing all this identity politics and bullshit. When it comes to Gina, what they did, and you're right, they made her a martyr, and it was a big mistake for them, and they're scared to death of her. You mentioned the Star Wars YouTube channel. Gets bombarded. You scroll through the comments, every one of them's a Gina Carano quote.
100%.
This is someone who, at the end of the day, I think we have to understand this is someone who hasn't done a ton in Hollywood. Had Haywire, which is an awesome movie. Go watch anything Gina Carano's been in. I love her to death. And shout out Gina. She tweeted out my TeePublic link and bought some stuff and promoted me, and we'll probably talk about that later because that involves cancel culture as well. But she's an incredible person. But aside from that, you look at her and like her role in Mandalorian, it's not like she was the star. It's not like she was a lead.
No.
She was the one that captivated the most people because she spoke her mind. It was different than a lot of other people. What they did, they are paying for heavily. They're scared to post on YouTube because of what us. You mentioned Geeks and Gamers. Lucasfilm knows who Geeks and Gamers is.
100%.
Lucasfilm knows who
they know who all you guys are. Don't be fooled.
And they're scared. How pathetic is it that the runners of the biggest IP, maybe in the world in Star Wars, are scared and want to silence people like me, people like Jeremy, people who are sitting there with $75 webcams, $100 microphones in a spare room. Are you kidding me? That's pathetic.
And that's why the fans and subscribers are so important. And that's not said enough. They are incredibly important because ultimately when you stand together, and this is what I was talking about when we came up with the Uniting the Clan thing, when you stand together and you support and you get behind some of these channels and you get behind some of the movements, whether it's 100 people, 1,000 people, it doesn't matter. That support is incredibly important, and I would be remiss if I didn't point that out. Having great guests on like I've had is one thing. Having great dialogue like you guys have with your team, that's important. But also having the support of everybody out there and everybody that subscribes and pays attention. Having you guys leave an extra like or an extra comment or a thumbs up or a little share into your stories or go check out this conversation, it goes for miles. And one of the reasons why eventually I'm going to be giving away a trip out here, I'm working on that now. I'm going to be giving away 5,000 rounds of ammo. I'm going to be giving away a trip here. I'm going to give away a whole slew of prizes. Rory even just dropped his water and almost fucking melted down the studio when I heard the ammo. Jesus Christ. But yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of really cool stuff out here. And I think that the time is coming for a change and a shift, but it can't be done without the people.
Yeah, and 100%. I said it. I did a little live stream on my road trip out here, and it's crazy to think because I started on YouTube like a year and a half ago, and it's true without the support of the people, your support's going to come and go depending on how hot a topic is. But there are people that will support. You have your base that will support you no matter what. That are always there, whether it's liking, whether it's sharing, commenting, boosting you in the algorithm, whether it's supporting on different platforms like Patreon or something like that, like. You guys, like you people are the reason that we are allowed to do stuff like this. I mean, you have the sponsors that stand behind you as well. And, that is how we can continue doing what we're doing. And at the end of the day, that's why we're doing it. It's
100%.
It's because there's people out there that like what we have to say that are tuning in. Like I said, I say this on Friday Night Tights. You tuned in the other day to Friday Night Tights. We get 7,000, 8,000 people watching. In the middle of a day, when people could be watching anything. They could be binging Netflix, they could be watching HBO Max, they could be watching ESPN. They're not.
Anything they want.
Yep. They're watching us because that's better than the mainstream media, the corporate trash that is put out now. That they hate your guts. They despise you if you don't think like them.
I have a question: is media salvageable? Is mainstream media salvageable? Ultimately, is it?
I don't think so. No. I think it's too far gone, and they're too kind of stuck in it right now, and it's too easy. It's too easy to do what we're doing. It's too easy for anyone else to get a platform, which is why they're pushing so hard for censorship. There's no doubt that these corporations are behind that. You look at YouTube and you have this, we're doing this testing of removing the dislike button. You know why they're doing that? You know why they don't want to show dislikes? Is because you pop up your YouTube homepage right now, after you're done watching the show, of course, keep watching us. But you pop up your YouTube homepage, you scroll down to news, everything's ratioed. Everything's
100%.
Ratioed because guess what? The people do not believe the crap that you're selling. So they want to hide that. The corporations want to hide that. And it's just trying to prolong this inevitable death.
100%. I think, I wouldn't go so far as to say, like I've said this before, I think in our lifetime we're going to see the death of mainstream cable. I don't think cable is going to be a thing, okay? With that being said, will you still maybe have local news? Could local news survive? I think it's possible. I think it's possible for sure. Will news at a national scale survive? I think it's going to be very hard. I think that's why you see companies like Fox News moving into streaming. I think that's why you see people moving into those spaces. Here's what's going to hurt all of them. I said this to you before. The right makes one mistake of being too all in on certain topics and certain things, and the way that they approach it. It's like they want to win an argument that don't need to be won sometimes, and they go off on a tangent in a weird space. I'm guilty of it myself. I get it.
Everybody wants to win arguments. It's natural.
Right.
Yeah.
The left takes a different approach of win at all costs. They're going to stand on a hill, plant a flag, and whether they have to put fake news out there, fake whatever, it doesn't matter. Propaganda, they don't care. Death tolls, they'll do whatever. I'm waiting for a daily death toll on cars, and then they ban all gasoline. He was killed with a gasoline car.
California finally gets what they want.
Right.
No more unleaded fuel.
And that's that's one of the things that's going to continue to go on, is they're gonna pussify the entire male species and back us into a corner. And one of the things that bugged them the most about Gina Carano was she was a very strong female with strong opinions. And ultimately it boils down to they want to censor and shorten the lifespan of a strong person. And it has nothing to do with gender in all actuality.
It goes against their narrative, though. You know, you see these companies and these media entities who, they really care about black people, unless that person has the wrong opinion.
Yep.
They really care about women. They really care about female empowerment, strong female leads, unless that strong female has the wrong opinion.
Right.
That's ultimately what it comes down to. We've seen it with Disney. It's over and over again.
And it's hard to get support even from within. So I understand what you guys are going through. I say it famously on the show all the time. I mean, I went to the NRA with this show. I put one of the most powerful people in sports in front of that gun wall. Never heard from them. Not a clip, not a snippet, nothing. So even our mainstream outlets within our own spaces have a hard time recognizing and understanding where things could go. Part of my extension of the olive branch to you guys is to bring you guys into the forefront of the conversation, because I think the conversations you're having are tremendously important. And I think everybody needs to start to have these conversations, but in a constructive way, and understand what identity politics is, and understand what these ideologues are doing, and understand what's going on. And if you understand it and you still accept it, it's kind of like some people are just going to be on heroin. And we just accept it, right? But you have to kind of acknowledge it, right? How you can't, especially after the CNN piece from Project Veritas, how you don't understand that, you're just turning a blind eye to the obvious that's in front of you. So it's very hard to gain traction even within your own ecosphere, and have your own ecosphere change and bend and understand what you're trying to do. So who do you support? Ultimately, it's about supporting the voices, right? The people out there having the conversations. And that's why the people listening right now, the people watching, they're so important.
Yeah,
and critical.
And, you brought up the Project Veritas thing again. It's if you can't see this connection that, okay, Project Veritas, James O'Keefe does what he does, exposes CNN for they are who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were.
Every time, they get busted. This time they use Tinder or something like that. I think I made a joke on a live stream about. I think to get Brian Stelter to expose him, they're gonna use Grindr. That's my guess. But that happens, and then what happens from big tech? James O'Keefe gets banned from Twitter. What a coincidence! What a coincidence that you are silencing a voice immediately. This partnership between big tech and the mainstream media. If there's people out there that haven't woken up to it, maybe they just haven't been exposed to it. Maybe they don't understand what's going on. Maybe they haven't found these different outlets on YouTube, and that's why. People sometimes are like, why do you keep talking about Gina Carano and cancel culture? Can you just talk about something else? No. It's
important.
That's what they want you to do. They want us to
They want it to go away.
They want it to go away. And we have to refuse, because every time someone may be watching you or listening to you for the first time, this may be the first time they're finding it out. So it might not be this old story to them. This is something that is incredibly important. The idea that people can have different opinions on something and still coexist. That's how we lived for thousands of years, and all of a sudden we are starting to take a very hard turn, and it's getting to the level of dangerous.
Yeah, and it's like when I get into debates with sports with people, right, which is something we're both passionate about. I tell people all the time, we can have the debate, but we can only present facts. It changes the whole feeling of it, right? Yeah. So instantly it's like you can't say but.
Yeah. Well, that's tough when we're talking sport. That's tough.
And I say this, with all due respect, to everybody out there listening, you can have an opinion that's wrong in the eyes of somebody else. That's okay, as long as you stand by it and you can back it up. Like, hey, this is how this made me feel, and this is how I feel, and that's 100% okay. It's okay to disagree. And And that's a scare. Like, people have a hard time saying that, Ryan. That's a hard thing.
Dude, that's what fandoms, since we're kind of talking about fandoms and stuff, that's what fandom's always been about. Sports fans, you kidding me? Absolutely cutthroat because you were born in this city and somebody else was born in that city, and you're yelling, you're screaming at each other, but at the end of the day, like, you're hugging it out. Like, in an office, in a workspace, you're gonna meet people that have different opinions, and you might argue about some shit, and it's fine because you work together. I think there's so much of this that's being driven by this strange part of the population that exists essentially only online and only on Twitter, and for some reason these corporations are listening to them because the narratives that they want to follow, that they don't think it's okay to disagree.
Right.
They can't understand how even, like, I guarantee you and me could get in a yelling conversation about some random sports topic, and it's fine because
real men can get into a fist fight and move on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the difference. That's really actually the difference. One of the biggest differences between men and women. Women carry that grudge like for months. Yeah. It's like that does not go quietly into the night. but you can have a disagreement. You can have I have theories. I have things that I believe. I still I could say it till I'm blue in the face. I'm a huge sports fan. When I create, when I have these conversations about sports with people, whether it's how I feel about the Patriots, whether it's how I feel about Larry Bird, or how I feel about a particular, or Jordan versus LeBron, right? I'll put Jordan above LeBron any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
All right, good. If you'd gone the other way, I would literally just fucking stood up
and left.
Yeah, I would have been gone.
Yeah, and I think Kobe was the best one-on-one player. I think those are different things. I think they're all different things, but that's how I feel, and I can base that on some thoughts, and what I've seen. And the sports is kind of like the great happy medium to have a constructive debate. And if people could just carry the same thing over into their ideology, they could have a lot better dinner table conversations and understand that. Like, listen, whether you agree or disagree with Gina Carano, she was done dirty. Okay. And I think at the end of the day, everything Disney's doing right now is to save face. And I think that Kathleen Kennedy is going to get her swan song with Indiana Jones 5, whatever that is. And then I think she's toast, regardless of what everybody puts out there every day on a daily basis, with all due respect to everybody. I think that's the writing on the wall. I don't think you have to be a fucking rocket scientist to figure that out. Yeah. She's been pretty much backed into a corner, bubbled over, and they're giving it to John. And that's the end of it. And that's how I see it. Whether John wants it or not is another story, because he can go and make all the money in the world because he's the franchise starter. So I don't know how that plays out, but I think it's his if he wants it.
I do agree. It's his if he wants it after Kathleen decides to leave. They're not firing her.
No.
All these rumors that come out, these people that are like, oh, my sources are telling me. How many times do we have to hear this, Kathleen Kennedy? Come on. She's going to be there. She's a woman running this studio in Hollywood. She's not going to be fired.
She's the face of woke culture. They are not going to fire her. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. Everybody needs to get over that. The reality is she's going to have a position, but it's mitigated. It's relegated now. The question is whether John wants to sit around and wait. That's the $1 million question, whether John wants to, because he's probably got 100 offers on his table. It's whether or not he wants to deal with it.
It's whether he wants to do that, because he's a creator, right? He's still in that creative mode. He wants to make things. Kathleen Kennedy's position doesn't make things, right? No. If you're head of Lucasfilm, you're managing stuff. You're hiring people to make things. You don't have, like, she doesn't have a lot of creative input. You know what I mean? She hires people based on the ideology, that is going to make things she wants, but it's not like she's out there rewriting scripts and things. So for people that think it's just going to be, as soon as Kathleen Kennedy's gone, Star Wars is saved. Nah, Disney is the problem, I think. I think being in that, we're seeing it with the MCU. The MCU is going the way of identity politics, so it's not just Star Wars. But yeah, I think we'll see. Jon Favreau, to me, he seems like someone who wants to create for a little while longer rather than sit behind a desk.
I think cancel culture will die, though. I know that's a firm statement to you and your crowd, but I think cancel culture is going down hard, and I do believe that when you have people, as we said earlier, like Mark Hamill, and you have people like even Bill Maher starting to speak up against, like, what's going on? Like, we need a list, like, of who's getting canceled this week. It's becoming a little ridiculous, and I don't think it's going to hang on, because this ability to hold people accountable for everything they've done the last 50 years, this ability to hashtag, let's get rid of this person, I think this is reaching I would say the final months. I wouldn't say days, the final months of, like, really? Like, it's almost like cancel me, because then maybe, like, I'll get some hits, and, like, we'll grow. It's just becoming a little ridiculous.
I agree with you. I don't know if we're that close. I do think that the tide will shift, and I think we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of people in Hollywood starting to, not starting, but maybe have for a while. Samara Armstrong is a great one. She's on Instagram. She's been speaking out in support of Donald Trump for a long time. She got canceled because of that. There are people within Hollywood that are starting to speak out. I think that's important. Normal people think that it's stupid, but just because we're seeing this swing, we're seeing this pendulum, and we think that a lot of people are waking up to it, the thing you have to consider is censorship, big tech, big media, because the power that they have, even though big media is dying and waning, they still have a lot of power, like you talked about. And when big tech is very firmly trying to just get rid of any voices that dissent, that's when we have the problem. Because even if the majority of normal people that would be exposed to this idea understand that this person should still be able to work, there's nothing wrong with having a difference of opinion, the platforms in order to put those opinions out are in threat of going away.
Right.
For conservative, or I don't even want to say conservative voices, for common sense voices, for anything that's right of Mao, effectively.
The reason I put that timestamp on it of months is because I think ultimately money wins out, right? When you go into the boardrooms, and this is a place I've been sometimes, and I've sat in these rooms, ultimately the money talks, right? So companies see one thing, they see a 45-degree angle of revenue, and that's why unsubscribing or not, or voicing your opinion via your dollar becomes so critical, right? So in these boardrooms, these guys ultimately care about making money. And that's why you see a lot of movement towards, maybe we got to rethink this, or maybe we have to take a toe in the water, or maybe we have to retool this. I think part of that, you look at like anything that the woke culture has touched, whether it's Wonder Woman 1984, whether it's, the Star Wars trilogy, any of those things, it's absolutely bastardized the entire community. And that's why cinema film is dying and suffering greatly, and it's going to move to streaming, and a lot of it has to do with this whole woke movement. And that's why downvoting some of the Star Wars stuff becomes tremendously important, because who the fuck wants to stare at this thing that's talking on Star Wars, right? Like I don't even know what it is. I'm not a he, a she, or whatever. They want you to use a special pronoun or something to describe them. Who the fuck cares? And when in Star Wars history did the hero's journey become, I need to identify as this? Captain Kirk needs to identify as that. It's an imposing of your will on a culture or a genre to try to forward your message, just as you're saying. But who the fuck wants to stare at that?
Yeah, I think that was, George Lucas forgot to tell us that. It was actually a deleted scene in A New Hope. It was where Darth Vader misgendered Luke Skywalker, and that's, he corrected him, and that's what gave him the strength to put the proton torpedoes into the Death Star.
So it's unbelievable.
That must have been what happened all the way back in 1977. But you're right, and the pushback, though, these people don't want to die. Like, this is their livelihood. If it was about money, if it was about that, we talk about sports, ESPN. Ever since 2016, they really started going heavy into this stuff. They've been losing ratings time after time after time.
Oh my God!
The NBA,
NBA is in the toilet.
Like, the NBA is in the toilet because of social justice. So if it was really about the bottom line, I do agree there's a breaking point.
There's a breaking point.
There's a breaking
point. There's 100% has to be a breaking point.
Because
how close now, we are is the debate.
Yeah, because now it's like, you know what? These companies aren't making as much money as they should be or could be, but they're able to push their wings a little bit, and especially for the players. This is what I don't think people understand is the players aren't going to see the effect from this for a while, because you have these unions.
These contracts and unions.
Yeah,
so
you have these TV contracts, these things that extend out, and what people like LeBron James are doing, bitch ass LeBron James, who wants to take every moment to virtue signal, likes to pretend like he reads, he is an absolutely fake dude in every way, shape, and form. I can't stand LeBron. His legacy is that he's destroyed the NBA, in my opinion. But when you look at him and the platform that he's using, he is destroying the NBA for the people that are 10 years, 15 years younger than him. He's destroying its future. And that's what I think a lot of these young athletes don't understand.
The reason I hold out hope for my timeline is because I see the NFL starting to shift slowly. Like, I see them starting to get it. They're like, we need to take a page from the UFC and from other sports. We need to just back away from this and do our thing. Now, they had a monumental fuck up with the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. I get that. And that's been like a dark specter that's kind of loomed over them for a really long time. But the reality is you can see it. They're getting back to football. They're trying to push back to football. Now, everything around them might be a competing narrative, right? So whether it's newscasters or this or that, or everybody else trying to flex their opinion. But when you see that little shift, I think the NBA is in the toilet. I think they're in deep trouble. I think baseball needs to go through some type of radical shift. There's too many teams. There's too much. There's too much. Baseball's just too long of a sport. It's something that's going to really suffer. And the only time it had any traction was during the home run race. Since then, it's been all downhill.
See, I love baseball, man. I think that. I think that we get caught up in that a lot, and MLB gets caught up in that a lot. Like we used to be back in 1900, we used to be the top dog. We're not the top dog anymore. Yeah, but you're still number 3. You're still making millions and millions of dollars. You still got dudes that are signing $500 million contracts. So they're not as strong as they were, and that's for sure. But I think that baby steps as far as radically changing. And then we see what they did. We see what they did with this All-Star Game stuff, with this Georgia voting law bullshit, man. They took, who do you think is the biggest supporter of Major League Baseball? I think it's probably older conservative white dudes. That's my guess. Yep. And you just said...
You can't resist. Yeah. You can't resist making it about ideology and making it about identity politics. Yeah. And that's part of the problem with baseball. And that's why I think whatever last guy... Because see, baseball, people think baseball is a sport. Baseball is about branding. The Yankees are a brand. The Red Sox are a brand. They're interested in their merch sales more than they're interested in anything. They're sitting around trying to sell more hats, more jerseys, more T-shirts,
more beer, more
hot dogs. Yeah. It's a brand, and at the end of the day, they care about the brand. The 30,000 that sit in the stadium doesn't even pay their lunch bill. I can tell you that right now. It's not about that. It's about all the other ancillary dollars that proliferate from that. When a person's sitting in a seat at a Yankees game wearing a Yankees hat and shirt and buys, like you said, a couple hot dogs and a beer, the ticket price becomes an afterthought.
Yep.
Because a lot of that money on the ticket prices is made in the secondary market or third market or tertiary market. Oh, yeah. So to people, the face value of a ticket, let's say, is $100, but that's New York. You go anywhere else, I mean, it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot more reasonable. They can't even fill some of the stadiums. They're giving the fucking tickets away.
Oh, yeah, man, I'm a lifelong Cubs fan, and Cubs tickets were impossible to come by when I was, when I was younger, when I was growing up. They're still pretty hard to come by now. I moved out to San Diego, and
wide open.
Oh my God! I was like, just tickets $10, really?
Right.
Like,
general admission.
Yeah, I got season tickets
in some sections.
The past few years. Yeah, I got season tickets the past few years. Not this year because MLB's fucked themselves, but got season tickets the past few years. 41 games for not a lot of money, for a good deal to go and experience a Major League Baseball game, because it's not about that for them. It's like, okay, you're going to come here, you're going to get a burrito, you're going to get the California fries, you're going to get like all this different stuff. And that's how they pay.
Yeah, I think it's tremendously naive on the parts of people if they think they're not going to affect the pocketbooks, and the people aren't going to change. They're going to change if you take a long tail approach and you say, we're not going to support that. I know guys, Secret Service agents, guys in the military, guys that will not watch a football game now. They will not watch certain sports. They will not touch basketball. They will not go near it. That were lifelong fans that won't even watch it.
Dude, that's how I feel. Like I am a hardcore Major League Baseball fan, hardcore Chicago sports fan. And I've watched the only live Cubs baseball that I've watched this year is when my mom was out visiting, because she wanted to watch it too. I'm like, okay, that's it. I would normally be watching every single game and watching replays.
Sure.
But they've just turned me off to that. And that's one of the things we talk about, on the Sports Wars YouTube channels, the fact that these guys are making these nonsensical decisions and destroying their fan base.
It's crazy. In my opinion, Magic Johnson's rolling his eye. I know we know, Charles Barkley's rolling his eyes. I mean, it's all ridiculous. It's all reached a point where it's like, you are paid to go out there and participate in a sport. If you choose to use your platform to destroy your legacy by playing politics and playing a side, that is so dumb. And it's not only dumb, it's terrible to see happen, because I can be a fan of yours. I can be a fan of Magic Johnson, right? Magic Johnson exposed an entire world to the AIDS virus that didn't maybe otherwise know about it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe he led a lifestyle that people didn't agree with at that time. Maybe he did things that people didn't agree with at that time. He was a beloved athlete and people love him. And he used it to build awareness, to create a message, and to create something positive out in the universe to say, I'm going to bring awareness to this, I'm going to talk about it. And he did it over a period of time. When I was younger, that was something that was very big. It really hadn't affected anyone in their household, but I was a huge fan of the Celtics, a huge fan of the Celtics-Lakers rivalry. And that was something that I'm like, wow, AIDS is a real thing.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can use your platform for positive and for voicing your opinion. But like, I look at some sham jobs out there, like The Rock coming out and supporting a political, we know that was bought and paid for. We don't know who's kidding who here. That was a bought and paid for ad. And you just kind of can see through that veil, and it's very convenient when these people get woke or these groups get woke because they're worth millions and millions of dollars, and all of a sudden they want to kind of insulate and protect themselves and become gatekeepers, and that's what they do, and everybody becomes holier than thou. Like we look at like even the Harvey Weinstein situation, everybody was like, oh my God, I can't believe he was doing, that's been going on in Hollywood for years.
I can't believe that a woman would sleep with a man to get an acting role.
Whoa.
Crazy. Who would have thought? Revolutionary. And, in some of these people's defense, I think when the comparison to Magic Johnson and the awareness that he brought, I think there are some people that are doing this that think that's what they're doing, that think that they're putting a spotlight on police violence and social justice that they don't think has been there before. I think that those people are not really concerned with the facts, and they haven't educated themselves as much as they should be when they're coming to speak. But I think there's some of them that think that way, but there's also a big portion of them that are specifically pushing a narrative. LeBron James, back to him. This guy who says, I need to stand up for injustices everywhere. It's my responsibility. Whereas he has this multi-$100 million deal with Nike where they use Chinese slave labor in the sweatshops to promote his stuff. He needs to stand up for injustices everywhere unless it's in China. Then you shut up and dribble, because it's not about the principles. It's about a virtue signal to the narrative that you want, and that is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the reality is these athletes need to be very careful as people start to judge with their pocketbook. And I don't think that there's anybody that doesn't want to call attention to social justice. But as we said at the beginning of this, people need to start to present facts. You have the Derek Chauvin trial going on right now. Okay, whatever your opinion is of Derek Chauvin in that situation in Minnesota, you have to look at the facts, okay? And this young woman cop that accidentally shot a guy, training being an issue. There's a number of things in my community that I could talk about that are the issue there. The reality is these people have either resisted arrest, committed a crime, or did something. What is your alternative? Is your alternative to let the people just do whatever they want? Do whatever you want. So basically, You've created a culture where it's do whatever you want.
If you listen to the prosecution in Minnesota, that's basically what their argument was.
The recommendation is, well, his crime wasn't that bad, and the warrant isn't that bad, and everything else isn't that bad. So when the cops stop him and they realize he has a warrant, and they realize he's resisting arrest, and they realize he might have a deadly weapon with him, just let him do what he wants.
Yeah.
Then why the fuck would you ever become a cop? That is fucking insane.
Dude, I was listening to the closing arguments, and he literally said, listen, he's claustrophobic. He doesn't want to get in the police car, and he just couldn't bring himself to get in the back of the car.
It's called drugs.
Like, what the fuck are you talking? He couldn't bring himself? Is this consent now? Is this consent when you're getting arrested? We have to give consent. And I don't like getting pulled over. I don't think anybody likes it when they have to have an interaction with police, and that's part of the reason that we need police. But one of the things I do that I was taught to do when I get pulled over is put my hands at 10 and 2 and wait for instructions. You know what I mean? Because anytime that a cop makes a traffic stop, that could be the last thing they ever do before they get their head blown off. We've all seen these like terrible videos. And like I get that and understand and I respect it. It's not to say that all cops are great people, because any walk of life, I don't care if you're talking about Catholic priests, I don't care if you're talking about NBA players, I don't care if you're talking about high school teachers. Within every group of people, there will be a certain percentage that are messed up, that are bad humans, that are bad people, that do bad things. That's just how it is. And this constant in your face, when they make it about race, when they make it about police violence against only this race of people, why don't we hear all these other names? I got a super chat the other day saying, why don't you hear this for this random name? And I'm like, I don't even know who that is. It was a 16-year-old kid who, 16-year-old white kid who got shot by the police when he was holding an airsoft gun. But I didn't know his name because of the color of his skin. And that's a problem with this narrative out there.
It's very, let me explain this to all your listeners and people that support you guys. Here's the deal. Police have a thankless task. Okay. I know a lot of law enforcement guys. I'm an academy graduate myself. I get it. I've been through the process. I've stood in formation. I get it all. And I have a lot of friends that did a lot more years than I ever did in law enforcement and policing. I just had Tony Sentman out Real World Tactical, and I've had some of the largest follow cops on this show. Here's the thing. Police are in a thankless place. It is a miserable job. It is highly underpaid. You are undertrained. You are underserviced. You are not respected now. So basically you're asked to be the person that runs into the burning building or runs into the gunfire and protects people, right? Here's the problem with the left's narrative with all this, okay? The problem is they continue to pound home this anti-police rhetoric and this identity politics on police and creating this negative stigma. But at the same time, they want to take our guns away. And who do they think they're going to ask to do it? This is the problem with that narrative.
Yeah, and
this is the problem with how that ends. And that's something that has to be discussed because I think that who's going to seize all the guns? Who's going to collect them all?
The defunded police.
The defunded police?
Yeah, the defunded police. And that's when you hear a lot of these arguments, it's always like, well, if you're going to do this, then how would this work that you want to do, whether you're talking about immigration or whatever. And that's part of the problem is these nonsensical things that aren't challenged by the mainstream media because it goes with their narrative. And then you have these big blowouts of people arguing about this. To me, like you said, it is a thankless job because when something goes wrong, immediately you are under criticism. Immediately you might get fired. You might get charged with a crime. You might do this all because of one split-second thing that could happen at any time in their jobs, which that's not the case for most of us. The majority of us, that is not the way that you go about your entire life, the 8 hours, 12 hours that you're at work every day. For them, it is. And when everything goes right, people hate your fucking guts. When everything goes right, people just hate you.
I think this is all insanely powerful stuff, and I'd like to see the dialogue opened up a bit more, especially as it pertains to the thankless job that is being a police officer and being forced to police under these circumstances. My fear is that if it continues, we're going to go down to this radical place where the response time is terrible, the safety of the populace is in jeopardy, and those are competing and fleeting narratives in many, many ways. And you know, we live in a society where just today, the other day, Maxine Waters gets away with, right? And I say gets away with, right? Because she's an elected official and who's going to fuck with her, right? Saying that there needs to be a conviction and all this other stuff.
If it's not murder, we riot.
Yeah, basically. We riot. Yeah. So basically now you're damned if you do, you're damned. I think he should be acquitted based on that. I think he should at least the trial should be thrown out.
How is this trial happening in Minneapolis? How? That's a big part of this problem. How is this not moved? We know it's going to happen. Anything other than a full conviction of everything, and that city will burn. And even if it happened, it'd probably burn anyway. Let's just be real. But
the guy's life's already ruined. To anybody that thinks otherwise, the guy's life is already ruined. Okay?
Yeah.
He's already spent an enormous amount of money he's never going to get back, right? Him and his wife will be on the run forever. He's probably going to have to change his name, and he's probably going to have to hide. You give him 50 years, right? For a crackhead that dropped dead, basically. And we don't even know, there's debate around whether or not he was on his artery, whether he wasn't, this, that. So basically the whole trial, in my opinion, is being run on the fuel tanks of empathy, right? Oh, you have to be empathetic. We should let him go.
Yeah.
And not facts, right? We should have just let him go. It wasn't that big of a crime. We should have just done this. Regardless of what you think, okay, at the end of the day, the people need to be very careful. Maxine Waters is doing exactly what she hated President Trump for. Okay? Yeah. She's virtue signaling. She's messaging. She's trying to lead from a certain platform and a platitude, and she's doing exactly what the president did from Twitter. And how she's not crucified or vilified for that, I will never understand, Ryan.
She's doing more than what happened on January 6th. I'll tell you that much. She's doing way more than what happened on January 6th, that she's not being held to the same standard by any of these people who are still talking about it, who are still trying to claim insurrection or something like that. It's insanity. But again, it's this hypocrisy that seems clear to you and I and all the people watching today. You know, that seems very clear. But for some reason, there is still a disconnect from people that either don't want to see it or haven't seen it yet.
I think that they're desperate right now. They're going to lose the House, right? They're going to get crucified. I think everybody knows it. They got crucified. Never in history have we had a president lose and down ballot lose every race. They're going to get absolutely crucified, but we just have to limp into next year and figure that out. I think that the Senate will be a little bit harder. The governor's race is a little bit easier based on what I'm seeing already, but I think that this is a really pivotal time to everybody out there and everybody listening, and everybody needs to pay attention what they're being fed, and everybody needs to start to vote with their pocketbook and understand something. What's going on at the border is a fucking disaster. What's going on in and around all the border states is a fucking disaster, and people need to start to take a moment and understand that. And if you want a country that's going to tax you to push a green agenda, that is total bullshit. And if you want a country to open your borders up and allow every fucking criminal in South America and every criminal in Mexico in, and abandon children on the Rio Grande and drop kids over a wall, keep going. Yeah, you're going to get what you want.
It's insane. And, you know, when I talked about earlier, Biden voters posting their L's, anyone who didn't think this was going to happen at the border, you're fucking insane.
You're insane.
We knew exactly what the plan was. The whole kids in cages things, man. Like, we know who built those cages. There's some people that are anti-immigration at all, of any form whatsoever. The vast majority of people period, are anti-illegal immigration. And I don't think that's a racist thing. I don't think that's it shouldn't be a controversial thing to be against illegal
I had
immigration.
Ed's manifesto on this show. Everybody knows Ed Calderon. He's great. He said, you want to open borders? Open the doors on your house.
Yeah.
Just open the doors on your house.
Yeah.
That's open borders.
You control who comes in and goes out of your house because you care about what happens to the things inside and the people inside.
Let me ask a really simple, fundamental question. When we have a process for immigration, right? What is the point of open borders?
Because it just takes too long. We know what the process. We know what the reason that they allow this to happen.
Voters.
Because they want voters. It's
a voting block.
Things. There's a reason why. There's a reason why Arizona and Texas are purple. You know, there's a reason that these things are happening. It's because of votes. That's why it's political. That's why it's politicized. That's why it's split down party lines. It's because of votes. And I think it's pretty obvious. And there are people every single day that die trying to cross the border. If we actually enforced everything, that wouldn't happen. Because people wouldn't have this idea. There wouldn't be these caravans that know that, hey, Biden's in office, it's open season. That wouldn't happen if we enforced the laws that we have. But since we don't enforce these laws, since we have sanctuary cities, I don't quite understand how that works. But since we have sanctuary cities, they do, and a lot of people get hurt. We had like 20 people die or something that were all packed into one car because they were being smuggled across.
Don't you love how he nominated the vice president to be the boy? Don't sleep on that fucking cunt.
Oh my God, Kamala Harris, she's
insane, fucking ridiculous.
She's fucking nuts. And
don't sleep on that fucking cunt. I'll tell you.
Listen, there's a reason that
she'll cut your throat and step over the body, Ryan.
There's a reason she was on the vice presidential ticket, and when you hear her speak, when you hear this like maniacal Joker laugh that she has, you know, she is not good in front of the camera.
She's laughing all the way to she's laughing all the way to the speaking circuit.
God, it's crazy. You know what was fucking funny? They had like this female empowerment speakers event where their two speakers were Bill Clinton and Kamala Harris, and it's like What are they going to preach about women empowerment? Kamala Harris is
$10 million for one to talk about sleeping with the wrong person and the other one to talk about sleeping with the right people.
Yeah, exactly. Kamala Harris is going to preach about sleeping her way to the top, and Bill Clinton's going to tell you to swallow the evidence.
Exactly.
That's basically what you have going on there.
It's fucking ridiculous. I mean, it's scary at the same time, and the border thing is tremendously troubling, and it should be to many people that nobody wants to grab a hold of this, and that's what's scary. And I think that has to be talked about more too. And that's
why no one wants to grab a hold of it. It's because the racist label.
Right.
That's why. That is why. It's because as soon as you say something about it, people clip this, and they'll say, "Wow, he's against illegal immigration. He doesn't want those people here." Like that. That's the narrative that they will go with and assume that it has something to do with race or country of origin, when it's really just about the country surviving. Right? It wouldn't matter if we were like Canada, right? We don't want millions of people from Canada flooding into the United States for a variety of reasons, whether that be economical, whether that be about how our schools and cities can handle these things, of course, right? So it's not about race. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with like our country and, kind of putting, America first in when you think about these things. That's what it is for me. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin or what language they speak.
And I have, tremendous empathy for certain groups, and I think some certain groups have been tremendously underprivileged, underserviced, discussed. We'll put it that way. So it's not for lack of that, but we have a process for immigration, as I said. We have a process in place for that. I think having closed borders and having protected borders prevents a lot of the nonsensical stuff that you're seeing now, which is the floodgates being open, which is people sleeping in fucking glorified tissue paper on floors, people jumping over walls, children being left. I saw a video clip and it honestly made me sad. Just so you people who think that like I'm this like whatever, of a kid getting picked up by a fucking boat in the middle of a muddy river.
Yeah,
I think it was the Rio, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and some kid that got left there by a
group.
The smugglers
and
were
I'm like,
hey, if we leave this kid there, they will stop to help the kid. They won't pursue us because they don't care about human life. And it's how crazy is it right now that our kids can't go to school, can't be within 6 feet of each other, have to wear masks and all this stuff, but they're fine. Everything's fine with people in these holding facilities, be like sleeping on top of each other. That's fine, but our kids can't go to school. It's nuts.
It's bananas.
Yeah, it is.
It's absolutely bananas, and it's not fair.
No,
and it's not fair. It's 100% not fair. So,
I want to change the topic for a second because we talked about sports. We got a little off of it, but
we didn't get deep enough.
We did not. You're a Boston guy.
100%.
We've been talking about sports disasters, so I figured we should talk about the Patriots this season. Or last season. What is your view? I'm a big Tom Brady guy. Always have been. I've been a Patriots guy too.
I got his rookie card over there.
Oh hell yeah! I mean Patriots. I was rooting for the Patriots before Tom Brady got there.
Wow.
Because I'm a Bears fan and the Pats played Green Bay in what was that 96, 97 Super Bowl. And since I hate the Green Bay Packers, I was like, Drew Bledsoe seems pretty cool. I'm going to root for the Patriots. And I kind of followed him since then. And Tom Brady, to me, is an absolutely incredible in every way. Like his mindset, the fact that, 20 plus years in, he's still finding ways to feel slighted and get this chip on his shoulder after everything is done. I want to hear from your perspective about this season in New England and what do you think it's done to Belichick and how people see Belichick? So,
first of all, I want to ask you a question because it's gonna tell me how much of a real fan you are. This is more Patriots.
Yeah.
Can you tell me who the quarterback was before Bledsoe?
Before Bledsoe? No, I don't think so.
It was Hugh Millen. So the Patriots, first you have to understand the history of the organization. And there's a good book to read. I'll give you. It's called Patriot Reign. It's a Michael Hawley book.
Who was the quarterback when the Bears beat the Patriots in the '85 Super Bowl?
Oh my God! It was what's his face from BYU.
They didn't score much. So
it was what's his face from BYU. I just watched it the other day. It was why am I drawing a blank? I can name his college. Brigham Young University. He was a total animal. It was.
I think he was Mormon.
Was he Mormon?
He went to BYU. It's just
Yeah,
my
but
guess.
I know Steve Young ended up going on to be the best quarterback out of BYU.
Yeah.
It was he was crazy. I just watched this the other day. I just watched this on the 85 Bears. It'll come to me. Just give me a second. So, and I could describe his whole, McMahon. Sorry. McMahon. Someone just said it, so they beat me to it. But
well, Jim McMahon was the Bears quarterback.
Yeah, Bears.
Yeah, I was asking the Patriots quarterback.
Oh, it was two.
Yeah.
It was in the Super Bowl proper.
Yeah.
There was two. One was Grogan, came in after what's his face got hurt. So Grogan was in there, but it was two. There was two quarterbacks. They got destroyed. That's a whole nother conversation. Now, here's my thing with the Patriots. You got to understand the history. So the Patriots were historically not a great team, right? Up until probably about 86, right? When they went to the first Super Bowl that they went to. They had probably a 15-year run prior to after Babe Pirelli that they were pretty bad. You know, they were a mediocre team at best. 8-8 type of team, middle of the pack. But that was because the division was dominated by the Dolphins, the Bills throughout that period. And those Bills teams were loaded, by the way. Shout out to the Bills Mafia. They were loaded teams. Man. They should have won at least 2 Super Bowls. At least one.
Jim Kelly's legacy could be so much different.
So they were loaded. Now, with that being said, people need to understand the Kraft family came in and slowly bought the land all around the stadium as time went on. As the Kraft family gained ownership and power, they were fans. And when fans take over, they tend to want to see the team perform and do well. Nobody knew Brady was going to be that good. And anybody who says that is a fucking liar.
Yeah.
But Crafty had an unflinching desire to continue to be better, to get better. That's why he brought in good coaches. He wanted to upgrade the facilities. He wanted to build a better stadium. He wanted to do all those things. He knew attitude determines altitude. He knew that he needed to bring everything up to level up to be appealing, because they're played down in Foxborough. It's kind of like a Meadowlands type scenario with the Giants and the Jets.
Yeah.
And historically, people need to understand this. The Giants were the broadcast team in New England because the Patriots didn't have a broadcast deal. So everybody in New England was essentially a Giants fan. Now, 86, 85, really, they go to the Super Bowl. It was played in 86, but they go to the Super Bowl. And they have this star-crossed team that somehow manages to beat the Dolphins that actually beat the Bears during the regular season. So the Bears lucked out in many ways, and they got a cupcake.
It's true.
That Patriots team was a good team, not a great team. They were a good team. And they managed to get to the Super Bowl. Now after that, slowly the pieces started to be put in place. By 96, they were back in the Super Bowl. 9 years later, they played the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. So what the Patriots did was they started to create a foundation for winning. And that's something that's very important. That's important to everybody listening in your personal life and your professional life. You have to create a foundation for success. If you want to be successful on YouTube, anywhere, you have to create a foundation for that. With that being said, that's what Kraft started to do, and he started to put those pieces in place. They have a couple of successful drafts, one of them bringing in Brady. And it's a fluke thing that Bledsoe got hurt, but there was a lot of foreshadowing there. And if you read the book Patriot Reign, they talk about this, how Brady went from bottom of the depth charts to number 2. He was already on the rise. His decision-making was very good. They really liked him. They were high on him.
Well, they kept a third quarterback, even though they didn't think that wasn't the plan, right? But they kept, because he was so impressive as a rookie in camp, that they kept a third quarterback,
right?
Instead of putting him on a practice squad or whatever, because they wanted to make sure this guy shows promise. We don't want to let him out there a free agent. Somebody else pick him up.
So as things started falling into place, the Patriots did sign Bledsoe to a 10-year deal because they knew he was incredibly good. Whether or not they thought he was trade bait later or whatever, in hindsight, everybody's an expert, right? So we were going to do this or we were going to do that. But Bledsoe, don't forget, let's not pass over Bledsoe. He had a cannon for an arm.
Monster.
And he was a monster. And he was a winner. He took the Patriots to the Super Bowl in 96. He had they had some good seasons. They had some 10-win seasons in there between 96 and 2001 when they started
Bledsoe wasn't some placeholder. He was the franchise quarterback.
I think he has and I'll ask the listeners this, I think he has a fleeting argument for the Hall of Fame. I think he does. His numbers are pedestrian now, but I think he does. And if he wasn't replaced by Romo and Dallas and Brady in New England, history would look differently on him, but he was a stud.
That's the problem with guys like Bledsoe, is that they're obviously not going to be first, second, third, fourth ballot Hall of Famers, right?
Right.
They're not that, but now when you start getting these other people like Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford, who, when you look at maybe their rank among the current day players, you know, how they stack up, their stats are double. They're going to be double Bledsoe's.
And people have to remember when Bledsoe played, it was a run and dump offense. They didn't have a deep threat till Terry Glenn came in, God rest his soul. But essentially, it was dump the ball to Ben Coates, dump the ball to a running back. It wasn't the wide open offenses we see today yet. That started to come in later, but it wasn't.
It wasn't these guys snapping the ball with 20 seconds left on the play clock.
No,
the numbers we're seeing nowadays are absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me get to your question.
Yeah.
The Patriots have this star-crossed experience in a couple good drafts. They go out and they rip off a chunk of Super Bowls, and they had some dominant teams from 2004 to 2010.
Yeah.
They didn't manage to get it done, but they had some dominant fucking teams. The 2007 team was a video game. They were loaded. That is the best team ever to not win a Super Bowl, hands down. And if not for a ridiculous catch, they probably win that Super Bowl.
I mean, I think most reasonable people can you put the argument that's the best team in history, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl. Like
them and the 98 Vikings are what come to mind as
98
two
Vikings.
Loaded teams.
And, you know, the Giants were just a bad matchup.
Right.
They played in the regular season, close to the end of the regular season, and the Patriots damn near lost to the Giants. So you have a bad matchup, and you have arguably the luckiest catch and the highest profile game in history.
Now, Brady, as the story goes, was originally going to be passed over for another quarterback, right? That ends up getting shipped off to the 49ers. Near you, right? So ends up getting shipped off to California. Now, with that being said, the original plan was to transition from Brady to him. Now, Brady had some issue with that, right? And goes off and ultimately wins multiple Super Bowls. But that's when you'd be an idiot not to acknowledge this. There was some internal rift in the organization. I don't think it was a rift that people play up to the level that people play it up to. I think Belichick looked at it as a business manager of the team, and he said, it's time to start to move into this. Yeah. Did he know that they were going to go out and win 3 Super Bowls? No, but once Brady was all in and they knew that was what they were going to do, he got back all in, and they went off and won 3 Super Bowls in 6 years or 5 years or whatever, 5 years. So they ended up getting the job done, and they ended up beating some teams they probably shouldn't have beaten. They probably shouldn't have beaten the Falcons, even though the Falcons were the idiots because they ran man-to-man the entire game and ran out of gas. And any idiot who thinks that was an amazing comeback or an amazing loss by the Falcons, whatever you think it was, you don't play man-to-man for 4 quarters with Tom Brady. He's going to pick you apart at some point, and you're going to lose. And they lived by the sword. Now, Brady goes to Tampa, and it was the right move for him. Ultimately, they were going to move on at some point. I think he held the cards at that point, and I think that's what Belichick warned Kraft about. If we do this, he's going to hold the cards now. And that's what happened. And they got out from under all that cap space. They have obviously enormous cap space, right?
They spent a lot of it.
So they knew that they were going to have a drop-off year. But if anyone listening to this, and you included in this, if you think for 1 second Belichick doesn't want to go back and win one to prove his point, you are fucking high. You are on drugs. He went out and had probably the best offseason, and he locked all these people up for 2 to 3 years because he knows what he's going to do. And I think he's going to trade or do anything or mortgage anything to get the right quarterback in there. I think he's going to give Cam Newton another season to kind of see how that goes. If he doesn't get a Mac Jones or get maybe even just Fields could be the guy. It just depends.
Fields is slipping. I don't quite understand why Fields is slipping the way he is. I
think it's Ohio State. You know, I don't think there's been a lot of listen. What is it? Herb Street's the best. Herb Street's the best quarterback to come out of Ohio State or something. You know, that's the running joke. I don't know.
Dwayne
But
Haskins did not work out well at Washington. Yeah.
So I think that yes, it is a long answer. I'm sorry, Andrew, but the Patriots are something I'm passionate about. So deal with it.
I knew it too. I knew I'd get him going.
But here's the deal. Ultimately, it's going to work out for both teams, and I'll tell you why. The Patriots didn't forego their cap space in a way that would hurt them long term. Obviously, they've just proved that in this offseason. They're in a fantastic place in the draft with a 15th overall pick. They can make some moves. And I think if they make a move to go after a Mac Jones, or they make a move, you're in way over your head, D-Day Cobra. Jeremy, you're in way over your head. I'll debate you on this all day. But if you think the best coach in history doesn't have a side of him that in a back room somewhere, he is jerking off with sandpaper waiting for the season. He is ready. and he's poised to make a run at it.
Yeah,
and he wants to.
I can't see what Jeremy's saying. I assume he's saying that
wants to debate
Belichick is a
me on it.
fraud. Well, you can come on Sports Wars and we can talk that. That would be incredible.
You will lose.
But you know, when it comes to, I'm more of a neutral party in this. I think two things can be the same. I think that Tom Brady can be the greatest quarterback of all time, and Bill Belichick.
Oh, yes, that's not a question.
One of the greatest quarterback or one of the greatest coaches in all time. And when it comes to Belichick, it's more than just what they have done on the field. It's how he has continued. We talked about this before. How you need to be able to take risks and evolve to stay ahead and keep your edge, and that is what Belichick has done. That to me has been the biggest part of his success as a coach, has been the fact that they are constantly pushing the line and looking for ways that they can exploit like this certain rule or this certain rule change, things like that, constantly evolving on defense and offense. If he brings people in to be revolutionary in offense while he works on the defense, like all that kind of stuff. I think Belichick, for the first time in a while, has a lot to prove. You know what I mean? Because he feels like
I think he has something to prove. I don't know about a lot. I think a lot's a stretch.
Well, I don't think here. I think
that's a very stretch.
I think the narrative is gone. Right now, we know what the narrative is. For a lot of people, it's like, well, look at what Brady did, look at what New England did. So obviously it was Brady. I think Belichick, from the him to himself, no. But when you look at the outside stuff, I think he feels like it's turned against him, and he needs to win.
You're a big sports debater, right?
A little bit.
You know your shit?
Sometimes.
You can't even name for me 3 wide receivers on that 7-9 Patriots team last year. That's how terrible they were. And he still went 7-9.
Yeah.
And that team was awful. That team was horrendous. Cam Newton had more interceptions than he had touchdowns.
Oh, Cam Newton's terrible.
It was a terrible team.
Yeah.
So you couldn't name for me 2 starting wide receivers because it wasn't Edelman because he didn't start.
He didn't play basically the whole season. Yeah.
You can't name 1 tight end. They were awful. So if we've established that they were awful and they were 7-9,
yeah,
what is Belichick going to do with the weapons he has now? And if he gets a quarterback?
That's the thing. Cam Newton's not the solution. Cam Newton, you'll be 9-7 next year. Cam Newton's not any good. It is about the future. To me, I was surprised they brought him back. I guess they're just bringing him back just in case they can't. I think Belichick's going to pull something and get his quarterback. I thought for a while they were going to get I know the Jets didn't want to trade in division for what's his name, Sam Darnold. They're going to get somebody.
Someone said N'Keal Harry. That's hardly a wide receiver. But
N'Keal
we'll take
Harry,
it. We'll take it. That's one. There we go. I can't even get the 100+ people in here. I can't even get them to name 2.
No.
Well, they were that bad.
You know, Hunter Henry, that's a dude who, if you get him the right quarterback that's not Cam Newton, that dude can fucking tear it up. That's somebody I watched him. I watched him in training camp, and pretty up close and personal in San Diego. Well, in L.A., the L.A. Chargers. Dude's a monster.
And here's the bottom line: we both know this. The division isn't good.
No,
the division isn't good. It's not like Buffalo, it's the NFC East. It's not a good division.
But the NFC East isn't good either. The NFC East, they're just bad. The NFC East used to be good. Now it's just bad. They're competing at who can be the worst. They're all going to be 7-9. Like they're shit.
I try to give them a little credit. It is a tough, hard-nosed division. I give it that.
I don't give you credit. I don't give the Cowboys credit for the Super Bowls they won 25 years ago. It's a competitive division, but I don't think they're very good. I think that's why it's right now. You know what I mean? Anything could change, but. The Eagles with Carson Wentz. Who are they? Jalen Hurts now, right? They're just all in on Jalen Hurts. Good luck with that 48% completion percentage.
I think, so to give you a final answer, I think the Patriots are at least a 10, maybe 11 win team right now. I think that's the over-under. I think even with Cam Newton there, because they're going to be able to cobble something together, right? I think that's a fair assessment, whether it's dinking and dunking, running, whether they go out and get a back to solve some of the problems, another support back, which I think they're still going to do. I think they'll do that in the 2nd or 3rd round. That'll be something they'll pull out of their hat.
Well, McDaniels is still there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting. I thought that'd be an interesting thing if he did leave, because him not leaving this offseason tells me that probably within the next 3 years he will take over.
A win this year is going to a divisional playoff game. That is a win. That is a huge coup for I think the Patriots. Now, Patriots fans won't be satisfied with that. We all know that because that's not the benchmark.
Yeah.
But I think a huge coup is like a 10-win season, maybe 11, get to a divisional playoff game. Maybe it's close. Maybe you lose. Maybe you play the Kansas City Chiefs, whoever. But you kind of start to eke up the ladder. And then it's going to take some shrewd moves. They're going to have to pull a rabbit out of the hat. You still don't know who's going to be that quarterback till the day. I think they did a good job by locking Cam up. Have somebody in the stable that, whether he could be serviceable as a backup or be the starter. Whether or not I think he has the arm or the chops left anymore, I think he's at the tail end. But if we can get a glimpse of 08 Cam, I think that could go a long way. So
my Bears have Andy Dalton. So I'm just still getting I'm living vicariously through everybody else at this point because Andy Dalton is Andy Dalton. But I thought to me, I think Cam is better. Cam would be better to lock up than, say, an Andy Dalton for the Patriots because at least with Cam, you can scheme. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can get a couple wins.
And he's
just
still a
on
run
scheme.
threat. He's still a run threat.
That's what I mean, yeah.
I mean, guys, we're talking about a team being better than the fucking Miami Dolphins, which is probably the benchmark in the league, right? Yeah. I mean, that's not going to be a tall task. 10 wins is going to get you right in the thick of that. 11 probably wins you the division.
Buffalo's coming back to reality this year.
And yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that's a foregone conclusion. I think Buffalo comes back to reality. But it's a 2-year plan. Anyone who says otherwise, it's a 2-year plan with the Patriots, and I think it's going to take about 2 years. But I think Belichick's on a 5-year timeline. If I was to put a timeline on him, I think he's in a 3 to 5 year window. He's going to outlast Brady because he just wants to, and it's going to be spite that does it, and he's going to have a bigger say. And I think Brady has another year left. I think maybe he signs a 1 year after that, maybe, because he has the ability, I believe, to add 1 year on that contract. I think it's 2 with an option for 1. But I think the Patriots defense being what it is and Matt Patricia having that KG title with them, that he's involved, I think the pieces are being put back in place for the Patriots to have a swan song. And I think it's going to be Belichick's force, sheer will to put them back there.
Yeah.
Did they have to? I don't think Brady had to win one, Ryan. I don't think he needed to win one. Just getting there, I think, put him in a whole nother echelon because he did what Montana didn't. He got to one with another team. I think Belichick just needs to get there. Now, Brady set the tone. He won one. So depends how deep he wants to go. And that competition's healthy.
It's interesting.
That disagreement's healthy.
Yeah, it's intriguing. It's the good kind of intriguing. It's like that is what the focus should be about. And that for me, covering on Sports Wars, we're sitting there watching Super Bowl pregame, and it's all about fucking social justice and Black Lives Matter and what people are doing in black communities, and that's fine. That's awesome. But at the same time, you have Tom Brady. Why aren't you talking about Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes in your Super Bowl pregame?
I loved seeing him tear Patrick Mahomes apart.
Me too. I loved it. I'm not a Patrick Mahomes hater, but he's overhyped. He can do incredible things that we haven't really seen done.
I worry
that
about,
way, but he's not going to last, man. He can't run around.
Well,
that.
I worry about Kansas City's longevity for a separate reason. I look at them a lot like those Jets teams that went to 3 straight, conference championships, and they were kind of right in that hunt for a couple years. I think they're better, obviously, because they won one.
You talk about with the Rex Ryan.
Yeah,
Jets,
the Rex Ryan. Yeah,
Mark Sanchez,
they were in the hunt, But obviously, Kansas City has better pieces. But Andy having the longevity to be of a Belichick level to go to, I mean, look, those Patriots teams, especially 03-04 with clock killing Corey Dillon and those teams, they were fucking loaded. And they had a hard time getting back after 04. I mean, they got back in 07, but it's hard to do in the salary cap era to go back year in and year out.
To me, you said the salary cap. That's the problem, is they gave so much money to Patrick Mahomes. You got Travis Kelce, you got Tyreek Hill, and those...
You're going to lose them.
When you choose to pay those guys, who you're not paying is the people up front and the people who just let Patrick Mahomes get chased out of the building.
Oh, we have breaking news. The verdict's been reached in the Chauvin trial.
You serious?
Yeah, but we don't have it yet. Let me see. Anyone know?
Did someone just say breaking news?
Yeah.
Well, that's not always a good indicator. Especially if some of my people are in here. Sometimes you get breaking news.
No, it's real.
What is it?
I don't know.
All right, let's get our guess. So my guess is not guilty on both the murder counts, and I think it's probably going to be a hung jury, but
it's going to be read between 3:30 and 4.
Oh, are you serious? So they just reached?
Yeah.
Man, I think that I think that when you look at all the facts, I think manslaughter's on the table. If I had to put money in, I would say hung jury, and we're getting
manslaughter or hung jury. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say otherwise.
They didn't put enough proof the other for murder at all.
It's like it comes down to like the OJ thing. He's guilty, but did they prove it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's so
and
much.
And look, here's the thing, and I know I said some comments earlier, but I'm gonna clarify. When you take someone into custody as a law enforcement officer, and no law enforcement officer will argue this with me, you're responsible, and he is responsible for the soul. At the end of the day, once you put cuffs on him, you're responsible for the soul of that person. How that plays out for him, I think he's going to pay the debt for the rest of his life, and that is not going to be easy, no matter what. And it's important I say that. How the man passed or why the man passed, I would like to be common sense on this. I think drugs had something to do with it. Duh. Right? Yeah. But I think resisting arrest had something to do with it. Duh. So I think however it plays out, I think two people's lives are pretty much over at this point.
Yeah. And
living with it might be worse.
I think the problem with these things is that it is completely politicized, right? People are completely made up in their minds one way or the other based on their political beliefs. And when it comes down to it, when I look at it, when that video first came out, I'm like, that looks fucked up to me, like that way. But then when you see everything that went into it, when you see that he was resisting from the start, they tried to put him in. He asked to be taken out. He asked to be put on the ground. He said thank you when he was put on the ground. He was obviously on something.
Saying you want him guilty for identity politics or saying you want him guilty because you want social justice is wrong.
100%. In the same way that saying you want him found not guilty for that is wrong.
Right.
You should want justice. Like that's what our justice system is supposed to be. Blind. Our justice system is supposed to be not based on politics. You had the judge say, "Hey, I would really hope that people stop politicizing this," and then every single important politician in Minnesota came out and politicized it within hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
here's the $1 million question: did OJ really win?
I mean, when you look at him now, when he's just like, he's got his social media out there where he's like just tweeting out like jokes about it. In the long run, I think he got off okay. But you're right, his life was completely ruined from what it initially was. We were going through on Sports Wars, we were going through like all these numbers of people rushed 2,000 yards, and we're like, wait, we forgot OJ rushed 2,000 yards at 14
Heisman Trophy,
14 games, and his legacy was destroyed. So justice can take.
You never see an NFL highlight of him ever.
No,
you never will.
Justice can take many forms, and ultimately, I think the problem is whatever the verdict is in this, there's going to be a huge amount of people that do not believe justice was done. And
either way,
it's just going to be more divisive. So,
listen, this was fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, dude. How long have we been going?
90 minutes.
Really? Shit! Holy cow.
We could go on forever. I don't want to keep us here forever. We got to eat something. We got to get moving. It's already 1 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit. Listen, to everybody listening, I want to take a minute. I want to thank everybody supporting the show. I believe Drunk 3PO chimed in. He's around this weekend. You are welcome on the show. I'd love to have you. I'd love to do a show with you this weekend. So if you're around, you're welcome. And hit me up or hit up one of us. Make it happen soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to say I appreciate you. And I appreciate what you're doing and what everybody's doing. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot. I acknowledge what you guys are doing. And I acknowledge that the mission is thankless. But to everybody listening and everyone who paid attention to this, please take a moment, support these guys. Whether it's in a super chat, whether it's just a comment, whether it's an upvote, whatever it is. We can't let some of these messages die, some of these conversations go. You have to support these guys and what they're doing, and it's tremendously important. So I mean it. Thank you for taking the time.
Dude, thank you. And, we talked about it. One of the reasons that I came on was just because we think there's so much crossover between our communities. And you obviously have a big audience on, Spotify and iTunes and audio only for everybody watching like that or listening like that. There's a lot of us out here that, like you said, kind of need to unite and start talking about all the stuff we have in common, because there are a lot of people, powerful people in big tech, big media that are trying to keep us down one way or the other, and we have a lot in common. So, what I'm doing, what Geeks and Gamers is doing, what people like Drunk 3PO, Nerdrotic, The Quartering. If you don't know those names, I would definitely go check them out, because even though they might not always talk about stuff you're interested in, we have a lot of common values. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, for my people, in introducing them to you and, the massive community that there is here, where we can find a lot of people that'll have our backs. And ultimately, I think that's what it's coming to. And that's what we need.
Yeah, it's about gathering together. Mm-hmm. So I thank you for that. Let everybody know where they can find you. Shout out your ats, anything that you want to give, and we'll start to wrap up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Ryan Kinel, RK Outpost. My main YouTube channel is Ryan Kinel, RK Outpost. I have RK Outpost Live. I have RK Outpost Gaming, where I do a couple other things. But if you find me in one place, you can find me in all the others. I am a part of Geeks and Gamers. Geeks and Gamers, contrary to the name, doesn't just talk about geeks and gamers. So that's how it started. We talk about a lot. We talk about entertainment. We talk about pop culture. We talk about cancel culture. We talk about the pushback against this invasion in entertainment. And, of course, Jeremy, the founder of Geeks and Gamers, has a personal channel where he talks a lot of politics. I know a lot of people would probably be interested in that. But we have a bunch of people there. What we want to do is we want to be the Barstool Sports. We want to take that kind of template and run with it. Be involved in a lot of different stuff and be, we might be hated by the media. We might be hated by these big corporations, but we're going to be us. And we're going to be successful because people are attracted to us.
It's funny that an anti-New England guy wants to be a part of wants to be like a group from Swampscott, Massachusetts. I know the guys. So, go New England.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he
try and retract that.
He was a Patriot fan until Tom Brady left. And of course, speaking of that, we have Sports Wars. And, Sports Wars is, we're about to hit 100,000 over on Sports Wars, and we are very much anti-woke mainstream media coverage. So we've been talking a lot about there and how sports have been ruined. So I do a lot of stuff. You can find me on Twitter. That's basically where I post the most. But this has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think this is, like I said at the beginning, this is the start of something big. I'm not sure what people expected when I announced this and you announced this, but I think we've caught a lot of eyes, and I think it's going to be a really good thing going forward.
I think so too, and I'm glad you said that. I think that there's a lot, and to everybody out there that whether they super chatted or whether they sent money over, I know Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers did, and Drunk 3PO, some of the guys. You're all invited on the show, and I want to do more of this. And eventually, I told you I want to get you guys on here to have a group discussion, too, at some point, and that might be a good excuse to come to Vegas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, does anyone really need an excuse?
Right.
Yeah.
So... Listen, I want to take a minute. I want to thank all the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Thank all the sponsors. Guys, to everybody listening to this episode, please go leave a review on iTunes. Please do me a favor. Leave a review on iTunes. I need the reviews. Do me a favor and share this. Push this out there. It's tremendously helpful and supportive. Get the conversation going. And to everybody listening, please go and support some of the sponsors. They play in the reel, and they're listed down below in every episode. We really appreciate them. Without them, the show wouldn't be possible. I want to thank a few of them now. Gallo Technologies for the walls behind us. Rhino Metals for all the tables and all the furniture in here. And I want to thank Galco Leather Holsters, CAA Gear Up USA, Inforce Weapon Lights, Pulsar. Go buy a thermal. You'll be able to see everybody in the night. Go buy a thermal. And I want to thank, of course, Blackwater Ammunition and Volquartz and Firearms. We appreciate them. We appreciate everybody. Listen, go woke, go broke. What is it Geeks and Gamers says? Fuck Star Wars, fuck Lucasfilms.
Fuck Naughty Dog, Raylos are weird, Solo lost money. I think
there you go.
Yeah.
And I think Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh, yeah, everybody thinks that.
So listen, I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate everyone who tuned in, and can't thank you guys enough. We're going to roll the reel. We're going to head out. I appreciate everybody. Thank you.